Are my lips luscious? Okay, so I just filmed a review of the Too Faced lip injector in Extreme, so that's probably why my lips look so like red and plump right now. Also, Jimmy's trying to like put on Ellie's new leash thing in the background. Good job, Ellie. It's so good. Rise and shine, bitches. Welcome back to another episode of Just a Quick Pinch. I'm your host, Connie Wang. Alrighty, you guys, I'm very excited because this is the first episode that I'm ever posting on YouTube as a video. So hi guys, if you guys are watching the video format on YouTube. I know some people really enjoy watching this kind of like video podcast. I know some people like listening on the go too. So I figured why not do both? First things first, a little housekeeping. I'm really excited. I know you guys have been enjoying having 2 episodes per week, but I kind of wanted to make sure that the focus of this podcast was always for young women in healthcare. And I feel like even though having Jimmy around for Hippocratic Oaths is great, we need some focus in there, right? So that's why I've decided, starting from now on, this is why it's nice being in charge of your own podcast. You can just make decisions like this. I decided that we're still gonna do twice a week episodes. On Fridays, our episodes are gonna be called Chief Complaints, where your Hippocratic Oaths, Jimmy and I, we're gonna be answering your chief complaints. You guys will, every week you guys can submit like questions, things you need advice on, stuff you need like, you know, that like big sister advice on, whether it's for work questions, career questions, school questions, have a problem with your best friend, have a problem with your boyfriend. It's all going to be included basically in Chief Complaints on Fridays. So that way things are basically staying the same, just like more focused. Yeah, Tuesdays are still going to be our focused main episode, and then Fridays are going to be Chief Complaints, basically our advice column for the week. So if you are new to this podcast, welcome to Just a Quick Pinch. It is a lifestyle podcast for young women in healthcare. So basically, I just wanted to create a tool where I could help young women that take care of others for a living just learn how to take care of themselves, right? Because like I just feel like every day I was going to clinic and I was like giving my patients instructions on like how to live a healthy life and like things to do, and then I would still come home and have to like call my dad and like ask him questions about like car stuff, you know? So like that's kind of the vibe. And I felt like also with the current culture of healthcare, us women still feel like sometimes we need to make ourselves more masculine in order to be considered seriously, and that's just something that I wanted to change. I wanted to be able to empower young women to just kind of be in their own skin and kind of experience all of the feelings and thoughts that we feel, and that doesn't take away from our skills or anything about us as providers. We can still, you know, embrace being our girly selves and then also be like superheroes basically. So yeah, this podcast is all about the things that school doesn't really teach you about self-help, mental health, career advice, relationship and friendships, things like that. So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. First things first, we got Hot Girl Huddle. Hit it, editing Connie. Alrighty, you guys. So first things first, we have our healthcare horoscopes of the week. If you guys are watching this on YouTube or new to this podcast, this is where I just choose a tarot card of the week. So for the week of February 20th, 2022, we have, it's an I and a V, which I think is a 9, but also there's 4 pentacles. So let me use my trusty resource here, Google, to see what this means. Actually, my trusty resource, everyone knows, is biddytarot.com. So let's give this a search. IV tarot card. Okay, so this week, our card of the week it's the 4 of Pentacles upright. So the keywords of this week are saving money, I need to work on that, security, conservatism, scarcity, and control. I'm sure Jimmy's gonna appreciate all of these things this week. Let me just give a quick description. The 4 of Pentacles asks you to examine your relationship with money. Are you accumulating wealth and investing your money wisely, or are you desperately clinging on to every single coin? Also accompanies scarcity mindset, especially with money and material possessions. There's also Ellie. Thank you, Ellie. We're doing this new thing. Ellie, thank you so much. We're doing this new dog training thing where when Ellie barks, we tell her thank you, because it's kind of like, oh, like thank you for alerting us that the intruders are here. Your service is no longer needed. Like you don't have to bark anymore.
Did I hear 4 of Pentacles?
Hi, Jimmy. Everyone say hi to Jimmy.
I think this is a repeat.
This card?
Pull, yeah. I swear we like read this exact thing, or you know, Biddy Tarot is failing us this week.
No, I think if anything, the universe is trying to tell me, bitch, save more money. Let's see, where was I? Bye. Don't become so attached that you lose sight of what's important to you. friends, family, happiness, and love, and more money. So yeah, okay, that is our healthcare horoscope, our tarot card of the week. Now on to my intakes and outtakes, my eyes and nose, my ins and outs of the week. So anyways, my in for the week. I honestly just like spend a lot of time on my phone, as you can imagine, and like life is just passing me by. So my new thing that I've been trying, and I'm obsessed with it, I've been trying it for the last like 48 to 72 hours, but every time I go to pick up my phone and mindlessly scroll, like on Friday night or like whatever after school when I'm trying to decompress, I reach for my Kindle instead. And the little hack that I did on my Kindle is I turn the brightness like all the way up. This isn't gonna make sense, but bear with me here. I turn the brightness all the way up and I do it on a cool setting on the Kindle, so it kind of like simulates the bright light of the phone. And I know this is like so not zen or healthy, but honestly, it's just been like the most helpful way for me to kick my phone habit, because it's just making it a lot more similar to my phone. It's like less quitting cold turkey, and I miss my phone less because of it. So it's kind of like if you're trying to be healthy, like you can't just munch on like carrots and celery right away. You need to add like a dip, a hummus, or something to like make it more palatable. And honestly, I've noticed a huge difference, because now I feel like looking back on my nights, like the last 48 to 72 hours, I just feel like I remember a lot more. I feel like it's a lot more of a memorable weekend. I've been a lot more present, and like I know that's the whole thing that everyone's going for nowadays. It really works, you guys. Like honestly, our phones are our problem. So 10 out of 10, I support replacing my phone with my Kindle. And then my out of the week is just letting myself feel like I can't enjoy things because I have stuff coming up. I realized like I'm a very like not in the moment person. Similar to my in of the week is like when I have a plan later at night, if I have a plan at like 6 p.m, I'll think about it like all day long, and I'll kind of like try to rest all day long because I'm trying to like conserve my energy for the 6 p.m. activity. But that's kind of bad, because then I let the whole day pass by just for what? Just for like one activity at night. So I'm gonna try to work on this. I notice I do it a lot. Or like, for example, if I don't have any appointments in the morning, but I have like a 1 p.m. and a 4:30 p.m, I'll spend all morning kind of like thinking and ruminating and kind of like waiting around for that 1 p.m, when really I could just like spend my time and like, I don't know. It's like this weird thing where I feel like I have to conserve my energy, but by doing that, I'm not really living in the present moment, and I'm just kind of like waiting for the next big thing. So yeah, I think that honestly, like my in of the week, using my Kindle instead of my phone, is gonna help me be more present. But I think just being more aware that like this is a bad habit that I have, it's gonna help me kind of kick it. So my out of the week is just not letting myself enjoy the present. Alrighty, so that is my ins and outs for the week. Now on to spit talk. Also, I have to apologize for the lighting in this video. It is like just super washed out. I don't know if I'll be able to fix this in post-production, but we shall see. For now, this is what we're— Ellie, thank you! Thank you! For now, this is what we're gonna have to live with, my friends. So, alrighty, so for spit talk this week, not much is going on. Honestly, at school, things are kind of getting interesting, because this coming week is accreditation week, meaning like, I'm pretty sure like some important people are like coming to the school and trying to make sure that we're like following all the rules and that we're like a good dental school. I don't know. So yeah, it's accreditation week here at Tufts, so people are a little stressed out, or at least the higher ups, I'm assuming, are stressed out, which means that us lay people, us little people, the peasants, we are also stressed out, as per usual, more so than usual. But yeah, other than that, I'm kind of just practicing for— I have my last part of my licensure exam coming up. It's in the middle of March, but I'm starting to prepare for it. Basically, we have to do like we have to drill 2 fillings, fill 2 fillings, and then we have to do like a deep cleaning. I know that sounds simple, but it's kind of like really stressful, as you guys know, like working to like the 10th of a millimeter on like these plastic teeth. So I'm just kind of getting a head start on it. As you guys remember from my podcast, like in August when I took the first part with the crowns and the root canals, I was so stressed, and for some reason I kept convincing myself I was gonna fail even though I did pass. You know what's interesting? I think this is growth. I'm very proud of myself. I feel like this time around, I've just been so much less emotional about it. Like, I really can't describe it any other way other than the fact that like now I feel like I know that I can pass, I know what to expect, I know that I can do it despite feeling so stressed out, so anxious, so like scared, preparing, and in the moment. Because in the moment I was just so thrown off that I was like, oh my god, is this really how it ends? Like, am I gonna like let myself like fail just because I feel so anxious? And I feel like that experience was good, because if anything, it showed me that feelings really don't matter. Even if you're doing something and you feel like you're doing it wrong and you feel really anxious and you feel all these things, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day you can still pass feeling, even though you feel like you failed, even though you feel like you're not doing a good job. So I think this time around, I think part of me is less anxious, because honestly I just have like so many bigger things to take care of, like finding a job and like planning the rest of my life and like treating like my patients and stuff, that like I don't really care as much about this plastic tooth exam, because I'm kind of like, I know eventually I'm gonna pass. Like I have to pass, and I know that I can pass. So yeah, I think it's partially that, partially not caring because I have bigger fish to fry, and like I'm kind of just like more anxious about like, or not anxious, I just have more going on for the end of the year. And then I think I also just feel less emotional, like I said, because like I know what to expect, and I don't know, I just think like I realized that there's no rational reason to put emotions into the things that challenge you, because it's not really going to help you, if anything. So this time around, I feel better about it. Honestly, like last time around, I was like, oh my god, if I fail, I will die. Like it was just such a huge thing for me. So yeah, this time around, I just feel a lot more like grounded and at peace with it, and also less emotional. So I've just been practicing for that, and that's what I've been up to recently. And yeah, that is all I have for Spit Talk this week. Now on to the main episode. I hope you guys enjoy this new video format. Thank you so much for watching if you guys are watching on YouTube. And thanks so much for listening. And yeah, now on to the main episode. Alrighty, you guys. I have Callan here. This is the collab that you guys have been waiting for. We are both Rhode alumni from, you know, I talk about pharmacy school all the time to my audience as if it's like the coolest place ever, because like the thing was, it was like pretty painful, but like there's just a special sauce to URI pharmacy. Would you agree, Callan?
Oh, I agree. There's like this little sparkle to it, I think, that, you know, it just grabs you. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does. So kind of give me like the background story first. Before URI, where did you grow up and where are you from?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Southern California, grew up there. And then I ended up going to University of Rhode Island for my undergrad, and that's where I worked for a research pharmacist at the time. Actually, Dr. LaPlante. She did your ID courses. Yeah.
Love
so
her.
I worked with her. Actually babysat her kids for a bit, and she kind of was like the inspiration for me going into pharmacy school, but I didn't know at that time. So I did my undergrad in biological sciences, and then shortly thereafter, I knew I wanted to go into the healthcare field at some point. But it was, pharmacy. And so I ended up transferring into the PharmD program at URI and did pharmacy school from there on out, and really liked it. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit background on my, growing up and then college years. So
yeah, so tell me a bit about, I know sometimes like I meet some people that are like, I've known I wanted to do this since I was like in the womb. Like, what was your thought process like when you were like 6, 7 years old? Like, what did you dream about doing?
I wanted to be an author, a professional snowboarder.
Oh my gosh.
And I think an anesthesiologist, because it sounded cool, and honestly I had no idea what it was, but definitely not any of those now. I feel like I'm kind of an author with writing and science in a way. But yeah, those were like my dreams as a kid. Definitely when I was 6, but I think when I was 6, 7, I definitely did not think I would be where I am now. What about you? Do you feel like you would have been, when you were 7, did you think that you wanted to be a dentist or anything along those lines?
Definitely not a dentist. I was actually like hardcore anti-dentist because I hated the sound of the drill. I don't know if like you like the sound of the drill, the whole vibe. I was like, ew, teeth, which is like kind of funny now. But I feel like when I was a kid, I was more like, I like actually knew I kind of wanted to do healthcare, but I also wanted to, it's funny looking back now because it makes sense with the podcast. I wanted to be a talk show host because I really liked watching Ellen, and I thought she had a cool job because I was like, oh, it's so easy. You just sit there and talk. And now I'm like, oh, that's like it's like kind of hard actually.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. You're like, oh, wait a second. That's like, people are like, oh, TikTok's so easy. Like, you're making videos, and you're like, no, it's like, it's kind of hard. Like, I'm cutting and editing things, and I'm saying weird things, and I look weird, and there's just so many things going on, and you don't realize all the stuff that goes on behind it. So, yeah, I definitely can relate to that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, you definitely don't look weird. Miss Callan is definitely like underplaying it. You have like 120K followers on TikTok. How has that been?
It's been good. I've kind of taken a little hiatus because I've been so busy moving and starting this new job and starting the PhD program that I just don't have a lot of time to do a lot of things social media related. But I'm hoping once like this month is over, it's going to get a little bit smoother and I can make more time for social media and post my TikToks and get more on the Instagram bandwagon, I think, with reels and stuff. So once it kind of dies down a little bit.
I like totally feel that because I feel like sometimes in life when you have like super big transitions, it's kind of like the last thing I want to do is like show up on the internet because like I don't even know what's going on like in my day to day. So tell us a bit about like that move and like, well, so to give the audience some backstory. So Miss Callan went to pharmacy school. We both, like I said, went to URI, and you recently decided to start a PhD program. Before that, you went through the whole match process and everything. Tell us the backstory about, you know, your whole transition going from pharmacy school, then to matching into a residency program, and then ultimately deciding to go the PhD route.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to do a residency because I wanted to get, you know, this clinical, robust training, and I felt like it would definitely aid in my future goals as a professor, or maybe getting a tenure job. I would have that clinical background to do research. And so as I was going through it, you know, I ranked programs based on a lot of different criteria, interviewed with a lot of different programs. To put in reference, I interviewed, I think, with about 10 programs, and then ended up ranking about 6 and matched with my number 2. And, you know, based on some criteria that I, you know, wanted was like research, early commitment, of different programs and things along those lines. And I think just things that were advertised, you know, just didn't follow through or was translatable when I did get there. And so that was definitely a big shock for me. And amongst other things too, which I kind of get into with my podcast on our first episode. But yeah, you know, I felt like this program at least was, you know, no longer a conducive option for me or my learning environment. And so that's kind of where I had to make this decision of where do I go next? You know, do I drop out of residency? What are people going to think? What is my mentor going to think? I'm going to let all these people down. And so I was kind of going back and forth. And so I made this decision where, you know, if something feels wrong, it's probably wrong. And if something isn't conducive to your well-being, your mental health, or, you know, your learning environment, because that's what I was there for, you know, you don't need to go through with it sometimes. And standing up for yourself is probably the best thing to do in those times and in those moments, I think. And so that's when, you know, I talked to a couple of mentors, asked them their perspective on it. Am I making a mistake? Am I overreacting and things like that? But you know, I had a good consensus, and they had my back, and I felt like this was definitely the right decision for me, and so ended up going through with it, and moved up to actually one of my dream position, which I really wanted to, was work in this infectious diseases laboratory in Detroit, and ended up able to get a job here, and I work as like a research associate / kind of like postdoc, sort of weird transition. And then I'm also getting my PhD at the same time. And so I think this also sets me up for my career goals as far as a tenure track position. And I'm able to do a lot of the same things that I wanted to do, just a different path, you know, and it's just not residency. And I'm totally fine with that. And, you know, I think that's kind of like my little path right now and what I'm doing. And, you know,
when you were like in the whole residency, like looking back, I guess, on your residency experience, those things that you felt like didn't quite line up with what you were envisioning, I guess, do you think that there was a way that you could have like back then either like checked that or like made sure that those things didn't happen? Or do you think it's the kind of thing where like sometimes you just truly don't know until you're in it?
I think it's definitely a mix of both. I can say with COVID, things were virtual, right? So we weren't able to go to the hospitals or, you know, see their culture or meet these people in person. And yeah, I wasn't able to see the hospital. I wasn't able to see, you know, where they worked or what they did or how, like, you know, their demeanor. You know, you're only interacting with maybe a couple people out of the whole program, and maybe they'll pick 2 residents out of 20. So you're not getting a very big picture of or perspective of, you know, maybe the whole program per se. So that was definitely tough. I also looked at programs that were outside of, you know, the East Coast area, and that was new. I've never been to any of these places before, these states. So it was kind of a bummer because COVID and it was all virtual. So I really didn't get to witness that, if that makes sense, you know, whereas if maybe in person I could have sorted that out a little bit better, or I could have asked some questions, but virtually it's hard to do so. And I think that was definitely a big factor into this. But yeah,
something that I think a lot of people think about is a lot of times we make these decisions and we form our identity around this decision. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this residency program. I'm Callan the resident. And then when you realize it's like not a good fit, then you're kind of like, it almost feels like you're afraid to like change that whole image, or you're like, it's just back to that, like, what do you think people are gonna think?
Yeah.
How did you like overcome that kind of feeling?
Yeah, and I kind of felt like that, like, wow, I built my whole like social media, you know, my persona around this like resident, right? This is what this big thing that I was doing, and I was like, oh shoot, this is not working out. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna tell everybody this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was definitely nervous, and I definitely had to rip off a Band-Aid and just go for it. And I also talked to my mentors, which helped me a lot, just to kind of get that validation to make sure like what I was doing was kind of right, and I was going the right way, and I kind of had a backup plan moving forward.
Right.
So yeah, it was definitely a mix of both, I would say.
What was the best advice that your mentors gave you?
You know, do what's right. Don't do it for your parents. Don't do it for Dr. So-and-so. Don't do it for Professor so-and-so. Do it for yourself and what you want out of life and what you want out of your career. You know, don't do it just because of, you know, X, Y, Z or other things. You know, make sure you're doing it for yourself, first and foremost. And I think that was something that really resonated with me. And yeah, I had to do kind of what's best for me. And so that's sort of where I ended up.
Honestly, I feel like that's been the hardest part of like being in my mid-20s, is kind of figuring out like who is me?
Yeah, like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, no, like actually, like what am I doing? Because like school does not set you up at all to get to know yourself. If anything, you have to like shut yourself down, I feel like, and like just not think about yourself as a person and just like compute like robot wise, you know?
Right, that's how it feels.
So honestly, I love learning about like why people love the things that they love, and research has never been a strong suit of mine. I'm gonna be honest. Research is not. I'm not a research girly, but I love hearing why certain people love research. Like, what is it about the process that you love, or is it the like mental puzzle that you make? What is it?
Okay. Well, let me start off by saying why don't you think you're a research girly? Like
Okay.
what did you have a bad experience in like chem lab? You blew something up, or like what was going on there? You're just like, I can't do this.
Definitely have blown many things up. Or shout out to Orgo Lab, where we had to like we had to like titrate or get some kind of product of some sort.
I remember that.
Totally. The thing was not spinning, did not work. I feel bad for my lab partner. But honestly, the reason why I don't think I'm a research person is because I don't really like being the one to like come up with stuff or discover stuff. Does that make sense? I kind of don't want to be the one to find out stuff. I would rather have someone else find something out and tell me, and then I can tell the world, but I don't want to kind of go down the path of will it, won't it. Like, I don't like that part of it.
I see. That's so interesting. For me, I love like being the one to discover it. So like there are so many things going on in my mind that I'm like, oh, it would be so cool if I could create this drug to do this, and if we could solve this. And so like I start writing down, I'll be just like on a bus or like my car, and I'll just write down stuff in my notes like, oh, it'd be so cool if I could like invent something. You know what I mean? And I think that's always been in the back of my mind, and that's what kind of keeps me going, is like, oh, I can do this maybe if we tweak this, and coming up with that. That's what I like. I'm the opposite. I don't want to go tell. I just want to make it, and then someone else can go relay that information, you know?
Oh my God, I think we're the dream team.
Yeah, we are the dream team. So yeah, that's interesting though. I always like to hear other people's perspectives, but that's kind of like what helps, like why I like research, I guess, is that I get to create these cool things that sometimes people don't know about, only I know about in that moment of time, that could be super helpful to like the human population, and I don't even know it, like, you know, or people don't even know it, and I'm the only one who knows of this like critical information. It's like super cool, but also scary at the same time.
Would it ever get to you, I think part of why I don't like going down the route of like, I don't know if it's going to work out or not work out, is because like I don't like feeling like I put all this work into something to have it like not turn out. So how do you kind of handle that disappointment if, say, you're doing an experiment and it didn't like work out the way you expected? Like, do you get down about that, or do you get fired up and you're like, okay, let's figure out why?
Yeah. So I think there's pros and cons. Like if something doesn't work, you're still finding out something that's valuable. So okay, if this doesn't work, then I know I can like rule out some other things and then try to pivot a different way. So whether it works or not, yeah, it sucks if it doesn't work, but I also know another thing since I know it doesn't work. Right. And then I can move on and maybe change my experiment a little bit better to move it. And so I still learn something whether or not it works out or doesn't. I like when it doesn't work out sometimes. Sometimes I don't want my experiment to work out because I don't want that outcome, you know?
Right.
And so Yeah, so for me, it's kind of a balance, but yeah, I think it's good and bad when it doesn't work out, and you just kind of take what you have with it. And then also, I think with research, you kind of have to, you do a lot of research before you do your research, so you kind of have a good sense of, will this work? It should work. And then if it doesn't, let's go back to the drawing board.
Right. It's never like completely a blank state. You're
Yeah,
working
you're
off
not
of
like,
something.
let me spend like 20 hours on this and will this work or not? No, like I have a pretty good idea. This is what's going to happen.
Got it.
Let's see if it happens, and so that's kind of where we go. Because it would suck to spend like days on an experiment and just not work out,
I feel like this made such a good analogy actually to like life, kind of. Like we should all kind of approach life as a research project, because you're right, even when things don't work out, like for example the residency position, it wasn't for nothing. You learned that wasn't the right path, so it helped you adjust to find the right path, if anything. While you were at URI, like doing like the pharmacy courses and stuff like that, what do you feel like was like the hardest semester or the hardest courses that you did, and like what were your favorites too?
Okay, so P1 year, definitely the toughest year. I think, yeah, as you know, there's just so many classes going on. You're learning so many things. Medications sound foreign to you because you have no idea what anything is.
Yeah.
I never worked in a pharmacy before, so I was definitely new to everything. So yeah, P1 year is definitely tough. Big learning curve. I think those were like my hardest classes, was like cardio and understanding just how to study. I think looking back, maybe it would have been an easier class if I had it my last year. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also oncology was super tough. But I think if I had oncology my P1 year, I would have thought that was the toughest one.
Yeah. No,
So,
you know what it is? I feel like learning pharmacy, and I can now say this kind of feels slightly different than dental now that I've gone through it. In pharmacy, it's like really learning a whole new language, because the way that you build your sentences, for example, is kind of like learning your ABCs, like inhibitor, antagonist, like all these phrases that like P1 year we were literally like infants trying to be like, okay, it antagonizes the antagonizer. Like our little brains just like couldn't wrap around that.
No, I could not understand binding affinity. Affinity's not affinity, but then this is like a toxin poison. I was like, what is going on? Like I had no idea. Yeah. It's definitely like learning a language. I feel like you have to get a good foundation and then work your way up. Yeah.
Yeah. Was ID your favorite?
Oh no, gosh, no.
Really?
No,
no way.
So I loved pharmacology portion of anything. Like
Got it.
oncology, anything, pharmacology was my jam. You know how you had those therapeutic girlies?
Therapeutics was my worst. I was
Yeah, so
so
you had
not
those-
therapeutics.
Yeah, you had those therapeutic girlies, and then you had like the pharmacology girlies, and you either did really good on one or terrible on the other. I was definitely a pharmacology girly, loved that. I was super visual learner. I like to see the structures. I did very well on those exams, but when it came to therapeutics, especially ID, because you have to critically think, and the answers can be anything. They all are right, but which one is the most right? That's what threw me off, and I think that's why ID was like definitely one of my toughest, as far as like therapeutics go, was my toughest course. I think that was my lowest grade actually, but it kind of drove me to do a little bit better, so that's kind of what sparked my interest. Like, oh, I wasn't good at it, let me try to get better in it. So yeah. What about you? Like, what was your toughest? I liked law. I was weird. I liked law. I don't know why. I liked it.
Law? Yeah, no, I hated law. There's no way for me to relate. I'm like, I really hated law. Oh, you know what class I love though? I wish this was required because it was just so much fun. It was with Dr. Serum. It was medicinal plants.
Oh yeah. I was supposed to take his elective, but it got filled up and stuff. But oh my gosh, I love him.
So tell me a bit about like the PhD program, because I like don't really have any concept of what it's like going through a PhD program. I know you have classes, but like kind of compare it if you can to pharmacy school.
Yeah, so it's definitely different. Your first year is usually your didactic courses, and this is going to depend like on different PhD programs, but I think for the majority of places, don't quote me, you usually have like a didactic semester or semesters, and then you do rotations throughout people's labs, or professors' labs, and then you get to pick which professor you want to do your research with. Or you go in and you already know the professor you're doing research under, and then you take certain courses that are specific to your degree. So I think the difference between these courses they're difficult, but I think going through pharmacy school, I know how to study well for them. But the difference is it's very critical thinking, whereas pharmacy school, you can kind of memorize things and just like check the boxes,
like
right?
plug and
not
chug.
Really, yeah, not really understand it, or you're moving so fast where all you do is feel like you're memorizing and not really understanding or grasping the material. But here I feel like I really have to like know that what I'm doing. And the tests are not on ExamSoft, which is super odd to me because like the past 4 years I've been only on a computer taking my exams. But it's handwritten, blank piece of paper, write out blah blah blah. It's like a long question. So I have like 8 essay questions, all short answer, draw diagrams, things like that. And then I think the difference also is that we sit for the NAPLEX, our board exams at the end of pharmacy school. To be a candidate, you have to kind of sit for an oral exam. And so I have to kind of go into in front of a committee of members who are obviously experts in immunology and microbiology, and they will ask me random questions, and I just have to know everything and anything about immunology and explain it to them on like a whiteboard. So that's kind of the difference is you're like, I have no idea what to expect. At least with the NAPLEX, you can kind of, you get a whole book outlining what you got to memorize and know, whereas here it's like, just know everything.
Right. And it's not like a person asking you that you're like, it's like,
yeah, like you don't get the questions before, like, what questions are you going to ask? It's kind of like, here you are. But it's also cool because it's like I'm learning something that I like and I enjoy. So it doesn't feel like I'm just taking these classes just to take them and then get a degree or get somewhere, and that's maybe how you felt in pharmacy school. You're like, I just got to take it to get to X, Y, Z. But I really feel like these are facilitating my learning and helping me in the lab at the end of the day too. So it's good, but it's definitely a weird transition. I think, it's definitely different. I don't know. They're both hard in their own ways, I think.
What is something that, like you said, you were kind of, like, enjoying the learning process? Like, not to go, like, too micro, but, like, share with the audience, like, something that you thought was, like, really cool to learn. And also, if you've learned any new, like, lab techniques or any of that.
I don't know. I'm just, like, learning new things every day. Like, like microscopy-wise, micro-wise. I didn't know certain, like, microorganisms grow in certain ways. Learning a lot about like bacteriophages and
that's
evolution
cool.
of bacteria and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. Refreshing my knowledge on immunology, going way more in depth than we did in pharmacy school. And I thought immunology was tough in pharmacy school. So it's definitely getting like really in the weeds. And I think that's, like the difference of PhD is like, it's like pharmacology on steroids kind of, where you're really going into it in like a scientific way, and you're not really touching upon anything therapeutic, clinical. It's like pharmacology, but little harder than the pharmacology in pharmacy school.
That's like crazy because I like can't even imagine. Like I'm like, there's more.
Like imagine them taking like the structure and being like, okay, well now these are like the DNA, like side chain amino acids that you're putting into this, and then you're like, oh wait, I just thought it was like a you know what I mean? You're like, oh, great. Like I have no idea, and they're just talking about all these receptors and depth and like what the receptors are actually made of, like if that makes sense.
I feel like your program is cool too because it's like you get to experience like still being a student and taking classes and learning, but you also have that teaching component. Like what's been your favorite part of teaching students so far?
I think like seeing them finish a project or do it right, I think that's very rewarding. So it makes me feel like, okay, I taught them well because they did it right. But also it's very rewarding seeing them finish something out and seeing their hard work pay off. So I think that's been something that's been really nice to see, and understanding different students' teaching level, learning styles. It's interesting because a lot of my students now are Gen Z, right? So they're so different than like teaching them. I think it's going to be such a different thing than teaching maybe millennials or another generation. So it's kind of like, how are we going to teach these new students who all they know is like virtual classrooms and all this stuff? It's such a different learning environment for them. So that has been such a challenge, but also really cool. For me to learn too. So
how do you think they're like different compared to like, well, are you Gen Z or millennial? I think I'm like on the cusp, but like more millennial.
Yeah, I'm 96. So
Okay, yeah, we're like 90, 95, 96, yeah.
Yeah, we're like I don't know. Like I don't really know what I class. I'm like a zillennial. I'm like
Yeah,
a
same.
millennial, but a Gen Zer.
Like, I feel like I'm old enough to realize I'm, like, not that cool. But, like, I have a foot in the door. Like, I know what's cool. I just know I'm not it.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I could be.
Cool, and I'm not going to be weird because, like, I am trying to do it. They're not going to be like, oh, that's so weird. You're not Gen Z. But, like, I could technically pull that card if I want.
Right. We could pass it off. If we really wanted to, we could pull our, like, Gen Z card. But
we could. So I can kind of pull both cards. So depending on the day. But I would prefer I'm Gen Z because that means I'm younger. So I just stick with I'm Gen Z. But I do relate to them a lot. I think it's just so interesting. Like they stand up for themselves. They're not afraid to say stuff. If they don't like something, they're honest about it. I think for the most part, you know, they're not just going to sit by, and it's just teaching them. I think you have to really engage them a lot more and find out different ways to make them learn, because I think they're so used to learning, maybe, you know, scrolling through feeds and TikTok such a quick manner that it's like, how do I get these students to best understand what I'm trying to teach them? So
yeah, for sure. Like, I feel like Gen Zs have the unique opportunity that, like, a lot of other generations didn't have, where, like, now it's, like, it's less about finding the information, because the information finds you. It's more about learning how to discern and filter out info, because they're just so inundated. I guess we're so inundated by stuff all the time. With your PhD program, how many students are there?
I think there's, like, 3 of us.
Oh, okay.
There's, like, 3. Yeah, it's, like, a department, and then you apply to get in, and then there's like 3 in the immunology and micro that are PhD first year students, and then second and third, I think there's about like 4 or 5 as well. So each year there's probably, I'd say to be safe, like 5 people maybe.
Got it. So it is kind of different, I guess, in the sense that, like, when you go to, like, pharmacy, dental school, med school, whatever, it's like you are expecting to kind of be in, like, this class setting. What's it been like, I guess, like, culturally, you could say, or, like, kind of, like, I guess just adapting to a smaller learning group to work with? Or do you not work together?
No, we do sometimes. We also have like medical students in our
oh, cool.
and like pre-med students, I think, in some of our classes. So it's a mix. So I see like the people in my class, but it's also I see a bunch of other people. I have no idea who they are. But they're still smaller learning environments. It's not as close, I think, as like pharmacy school, you know, because every time in pharmacy school you like sit in the same spot every day.
Yeah.
You had your friends, you'd say hi to them. And
wait, where was your spot in 120 or 170? I forget what.
Okay, I was definitely in the back. I was like,
me too.
Third row back.
Was it the left side of the room or the right side of the room?
The left.
Oh my god, me too. I was like a left backsider.
Yep. I was left backsider, and you know, I was not in the front row, but yeah, no, I like that spot, and so I always say hi to my friends, and it was just, you know, like you get your little group, and like that was your spot, so you knew everyone around you. Whereas here, it's like it's new. You know, and everyone has like a different career goal, and everyone's at different stages of their life. Some people have families, some people have kids, some people don't, you know, so it's so different. Whereas in pharmacy school, I felt like everyone really just started turning 21 at the same time, P3 year, you know,
right.
So everyone was in it together, whereas this is a little bit different, you know, there's some sort of camaraderie and pharmacy school.
I think that's why I look back so fondly on pharmacy school, because we were all in this little bubble at the same point in our lives, just like kind of naive, like 18 to, I think I was like 23 or 24 by the time I graduated. And just like, I feel like we all just kind of like grew up together. Like we just like figured out how to kind of adult. So I know that you've been through like a lot of changes too, with like changing the program, going from residency to PhD, moving. What do you think are some things that have helped you in like this whole transition and like helped you kind of, I guess, center yourself or create a new home for yourself now?
Yeah, I think it's reaching out to friends and mentors and being able, I guess, being honest with them too, and like what you're going through. I think as I was more honest, people started to, you know, really support me and support, you know, how I was feeling or what I was going through at the time. And so they were able to be a really solid crutch for me to kind of lean on during some hard times. You know, mentor support, friend support.
What you said about once you become more vulnerable with people, it's almost like we're always so afraid to admit that like maybe like we want to change paths or things like that. Like a lot of times we feel like we realize too late. It's never really like too late. It's like the sooner you admit to yourself and like live a more authentic life to like what you want, the sooner you can like get on that right path, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, 100%. I felt like, oh my gosh, if I go through this, like what, like, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this in my heart? Like, is this what I feel like is right? And you're just kind of like torn with yourself. Like, is this my identity? What do I do? And I feel like you probably felt that way too, going through something and then knowing that you had something else that you're passionate about and how to kind of switch career paths in a way, but still be relatable, you know? I'm sure the pharmacy degree definitely helped you in dental school too. So, yeah. I don't know. Did it actually help you in dental school?
Like 1000%, but in ways that you wouldn't expect, because everybody's like, oh, it probably helped you in pharmacology. And it like kind of did, but pharmacology was like, they like really don't teach much in dental school. What it more so helped me was like know how to study, know how to talk to a person, like a patient, like a real person, and not like in like OSCE. Like I used to be so scared of OSCEs in pharmacy school. I'd be like, oh.
I loved OSCEs. I was like, this is my jam. Like I'm ready to. I'd like pump up my groups before we go in.
Oh my gosh, I needed you in my group. You would have been such a good person to have.
Loved it. I started saying random stuff too. I was like, yeah, do this, and maybe I shouldn't have said that, but yeah. It was fun. But...
That's so funny. Wait, I'm so curious if they had the same actor. There was always like this one guy, I forget his name. He's like, he had a big beard. He was the OSCE actor. So for those of you guys that don't know, like our pharmacy school was like in the same town as this local theater group. And like for this local theater group, like this was their big break, was like being our like fake patients at our pharmacy school. So, like, they would put their whole, like, everything into this role. Like, they're like, oh, you want me to pretend like I'm having a hard time with my insulin? Like, okay, I'll pretend it. Like, they were just, like, so into their roles. One more question I actually wanted to ask you on, do you have any insight on, like, grant writing and that kind of stuff? I know it's, like, kind of, like, for me, it seems like a really elusive, hardcore topic, but can you help, like, break down any sort of tips for anyone with that?
So, I think, yeah, for me, it was definitely really a tough sort of getting into grant writing and seeing that whole process, because it is a long process and it takes a lot of work and you don't realize it. And so a lot of it is trial and error, and a lot of it is writing and reading. And you got to like writing and reading. And I mean, you were writing, like, it feels like novels. And so I think being able to have like a mentor sit down with you and talk about like that process, like, hey, this is what we're going to write first, or have you review the grant with them is really helpful. And I feel like that has helped me a little bit in my past experiences. Nowhere am I near writing a great grant by any means at this point in my career, but I think just having that experience and being able to see that process is really helpful. But yeah, it's just trial and error, writing a lot of things down.
What keeps you motivated through that whole process? Because I can imagine it can be really discouraging if you like submit things and then like you keep getting feedback back. You're like, what, like, how do you stay motivated with that? Yeah,
sometimes it's hard because, like, you know, you want to be like, oh, I don't agree with that person, or like, you know, did you not read my paper or something like that. But you know, a lot of the times they do have good feedback. But I think what keeps me going is like, you just there's like this rush when it does, I think, get approved. You're like, oh, I did something right. It's kind of, I don't know if it's like academic validation, but you're like, ooh, like, okay, like you're trying to reach this goal, and once you get that goal, you're like, you're satisfied. But then you want more, you know what I mean? It's like, you want more of that. And I think that's what keeps me going, but also knowing that some of these things that we're writing about, like, can really help people at the end of the day. And I think that's what keeps me going, is like, I can really make a huge impact on people's lives if we just keep, you know, moving forward and doing this research. So I think it's, definitely a mix of both, but being able to hopefully find these cures for antibiotic resistance and stuff like that.
Is that like your big like end goal like thing that you're really passionate about, is like helping that fight against antibiotic resistance?
I think in general, I think it's just wanting to make a big difference, whether that be finding something in antibiotic resistance or discovering a new drug that can help people. I'm not sure what exactly it is right now, but I'm just hoping that I can make a big impact on somebody's life or multiple people's lives at the end of the day. And that's kind of where I'm headed.
It's really cool hearing you talk about like how your big picture goal is like wanting to impact people, because I can see like you're already doing it every day, how you impact people on TikTok, how you impact like your students that you're teaching, how you're impacting like the world of research with what you're doing. And I feel like that's actually like a good reminder to anyone listening. Like, you don't have to be at your end goal, graduated with a degree in your hand to like do what you want to do, you know?
Oh yeah, very, very true, very true.
I think also your story is like really inspirational because in some ways people, I feel like it's really easy to like look at your timeline and be like, oh, it's gonna take so long to like get to where I want to go. Like at least I felt that way, being like, oh my gosh, 4 more years, I can't imagine. And like with a PhD, it's not like a set like end date, right? Or is it?
No, it's like, oh, 4 years ish, but usually
Ish.
5 to 6. Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, like what advice would you give to anyone out there that's kind of like they're starting to get that inkling that they want to go down that different path, but they're kind of tied up with the thought that their timeline is going to be like pushed back.
Yeah. Oh man. So I struggled with that. Once I graduated from my undergrad degree and I went to pharmacy school, I remember my friends were like, "Oh, you're gonna go to pharmacy school? That's 4 years. Like that's really tough. Like good luck." And they're already getting jobs right out of graduating,
Right.
going to being in nursing school and whatnot. And I was like, okay, yeah, the 4 years will be worth it. And then I go through it, and I'm like, you know what? It's my happiness. At the end of the day, I have to live with what I do, and I want to be able to, one, make an impact, but also I want to be able to do what I like every day of my life. I don't want to be stuck in a miserable job just because of the money, because it's good. That's not what I want to do. And I know that that doesn't bring me happiness. No amount of money could bring me happiness as long as I like what I'm doing. And so, I think I figured that out, and I was like, you know what? You working at CVS, I figured that out. I was like, you know what? I don't even care if they paid me $1 million a year. I would not do this because, of XYZ. It's just not what I like, and I don't go to work every day, loving my life, and I want to be able to say that I do. And so that's kind of where it's going to be extra years, but at least I know that every day when I work, it will be a reminder of, like, I like what I'm doing, and I don't hate waking up in the morning, and I like to go to work, and I like what I do, and that's what I think helps me. I will go back to school again and again and again until I'm happy with what I'm doing,
Yeah.
You
Or
realize,
until fast food cuts me off, then.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I just might live on fast food forever, but yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I don't know. I just think that's important to me, but everyone has a different experience too, so.
Yeah. I think sometimes, you know what it is? I think sometimes when you think about like your dream life, people think that they're so different from like their aspirations, their heroes. So for example, when I was in pharmacy school, one of the things that kind of held me back from wanting to do dentistry was I looked at like these really cool dentists out there and I was like, oh, I can't be like them. Like I'm not like as smart as them, as whatever as them. I'm safer just staying where I am now. And what I've realized is we're actually like not too different from those people. It's just they made the decision to choose better, like what they wanted for themselves, And I feel like life is just a series of choices of like, are you going to be brave enough to like go for the life you want, or are you just going to settle with something that you know?
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's such a great point. I love that. I think, yeah, you hit it on the head, like perfect, or whatever.
I've had a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah. No, but it's so true. It's like you really have to just kind of go with that, and do what makes you happy at the end of the day, regardless of how long it's going to take. But yeah, I think about that all the time. I'm like, well, I'm not married. I don't have kids, and everyone else is having kids and getting married. And what am I doing? And I kind of just sit back and be like, you know what? Just maybe that's just not what that's meant to be in my life right now. And I'm okay with that. I'm happy with, I have a roof over my head and I'm happy with where I'm at. So yeah.
Aside from like career and like from that standpoint, what's your life look like nowadays? Like, Callan outside of like the lab and the school setting.
Yeah. So I love snowboarding. I love going to the mountains. I love hanging out with my friends. I go to Pier Bar with my roommate.
I love that.
Yeah, she's got me like onto that, so we do that sometimes.
I actually thought it was really cool when I was doing my deep stock. I saw that you actually got baptized your P4 year right before graduating. What was like your thought process with that, and what motivated you to do that?
So I feel like that has always been something that I wanted to do. I just wasn't too sure. I wanted to make sure that it was a decision that I made, not anyone else's. And, I have a different viewpoint on religion. And so that is, I won't get into that. But I think, like, for me, I really had to rely on myself throughout my college years and financially, like, emotionally and stuff like that. And so, being very independent at such a young age, it really makes you rely on yourself. But you can only do that for so long. So I think my P4 year, it kind of took a toll on me. I was like, I felt like I didn't have anybody. I was, really going through a tough time. And so I had to rely on something that was much bigger than myself, and that happened to be my religion. And so that kind of got me through that year and moving forward into, residency and moving by myself and things like that. And so I felt like this is something that I really wanted to do, and I just kind of went with it and went for it. And I had a really supportive group of people around me during that time. And yeah, it was really great. So I'm happy I did it. And it really just kind of like a symbol for me, like, I can't do everything myself. It's okay to rely on somebody else. It's okay to rely on something that's much bigger than yourself. And so that's kind of the sort of meaning behind it for me, at least.
I love that. Oh my gosh, because I feel like when we're in school, it's always so go, so busy. Like, anything else besides focusing on school almost feels like it's like too much of a luxury, like a distraction. But I feel like people forget to think that these things, like getting baptized or finding things that like really give you strength and nourish you, are actually like part of the process. You can't just like hustle down that road of career, whatever, alone.
Right. Yeah. You got to take some time for yourself and do what makes you happy. And then also like be able to share those moments with people,
Well, that is all the questions that I have for you. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time. I know like this is like the time when you catch up on social media stuff, but it just means a lot to me that you took the time to record with me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. No, thanks for having me. I'm super excited and love literally talking to you. So hopefully we get to do this again, and you'll have to come on my podcast and talk about dental school and all that fun stuff. So
yeah,
it's been great.
Yeah,
I wish we lived closer.
I know. No, honestly, like, if you're ever in Boston, hit me up. If I'm ever near you, I'll let you know.
Oh, I totally will. You got a place to stay.
Oh, it's vice versa. Let the audience know your handles, where they can find you, and where they can listen to your podcast, too.
Yeah, so you can find me on Spotify, Apple, iTunes. Our podcast is called PKPD, Practical Knowledge for Personal Development, where we talk about, different career things within pharmacy, advancing in the profession, and just kind of, the struggles that we all go through and how to kind of be relatable in that sort of sense. I'm also on TikTok at professional.drugdealer and Instagram at Callan Farm. So yeah, you can find me all there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Callan, and thank you so much for you guys out there listening. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.